This is a prison specifically for beautiful girls. Inside are sexy succubi, terrifying corpse demons, and even indescribable creatures. The one who arrested them was the prison warden Aiden. He was once the strongest man on the continent, but unfortunately, Lao Deng is dead. Xiao Deng has now lost all his strength, but fortunately the entire prison is made of mercury, and the female prisoners can basically not break the cell door. But this vampire refused to believe in evil. He dug the tunnel for 20 years without eating or drinking, and now he has finally regained his freedom. But the next second, the warden Aiden appeared behind him, and then he ruthlessly pressed the shutter of the camera. You were originally only sentenced to 2 days, but now it seems that you will have to add a few more years. The vampire asked, "How did you find me?" "You are a vampire, and you have to go to the toilet for 8 hours every day. If you don't dig a tunnel, do you eat in the toilet? As for why we arrested you now, of course we want to use you as an example to other prisoners." He was furious and was about to attack Aiden, but the next second, a gun was pointed at him. The person holding the gun was none other than Aiden, who was also a prisoner. Alice, the Eclipse Witch, also arrived, and the necromancer Lena arrived late. The vampire was shocked. "Why are you helping him? If we join forces, he will surely die. Don't you long for freedom?" The three of them responded to him with silence. Aiden finally spoke. "Don't bother yourself. I have already signed a contract with them. Are you going to go back by yourself, or will I beat you half to death first?" The vampire said, "I will fight you. Of course I have to warn you. If you dare to fight back, I will stuff your mouth full of garlic and dry it in the sun for a day." Hearing this, the vampire's expression instantly changed. "Hate it. I just came out to enjoy the moon. I'm going back now. Then you can come back the same way you came out." After dealing with him, Aiden returned to the prison. As soon as he entered, the whole prison was filled with curses against him. He sighed helplessly and decided to turn off the lights. He hadn't taken action in 3 years and was no longer able to control the situation. It was only a matter of time before the prisoners rioted. Aiden couldn't bear it any longer in the face of their shouting and cursing, so he raised his hands and cast a flash spell, which silenced the prisoners, but that was all. This was the only magic he knew. He just hoped that no more troublemakers would come. As expected, an accident happened. This time, the one sent was a werewolf who wiped out a town. Aiden sighed. "Damn my bad mouth. This prison only accepts female demons. There is a sexy succubus who was arrested for pornography. There is an orc sister who only eats human brains. And there are countless cruel girls imprisoned here. But Aiden, the warden, is just an ordinary person." The old Deng was the strongest man on the continent, but an accident caused the young Deng to take over his body. Of course, he did not inherit the original owner's strength, so he never took action again after that, which also caused the entire prison to fall into a situation where a riot could occur at any time. Aiden prayed every day that no more troublemakers would come, but things did not go as he wished. Today, another murderous werewolf came. Aiden sighed helplessly. Through the handover, he learned that this was a death row inmate, and his men gave him an injection of sedatives during the chaos. Aiden stopped Captain Rosen, who was about to leave, and wanted to ask about adding a new building to the prison. Captain Rosen was very straightforward. The higher-ups disagree with this because the money spent on prisoners for 1 year is enough for the slums to eat for 100 years. Nowadays, the conflict between humans and aliens is getting more and more serious. If Lord Aiden can kill a group of prisoners, the people above can also see your attitude. The werewolf just now is undoubtedly your best choice. He is also a death row inmate, so he will die if he dies. After saying that, he left, leaving Aiden standing there with a cold face. Decades ago, humans were comrades in arms fighting against aliens together. Now there is no war, and humans are facing poverty, hunger, and unemployment. The nobles were in urgent need of an outlet, and this outlet was naturally other races other than humans. Aiden finally compromised. Now he had to arrange a cell for the werewolves, but now most of the cells were crammed with 2 or more people. By the way, the succubus seems to be a person. When he heard someone calling him, the succubus came up like a dog. He was swept in by the anti-pornography campaign. Aiden was also speechless. "You were there every time there was a crackdown on prostitution. Please ask the warden to reduce my sentence. I am willing to do anything for you." Aiden became interested. "Are you telling the truth?" "Yes, it's true." Then, he looked at the werewolf being carried in with a confused look on his face. "This is the roommate I arranged for you. Do you like him?" The succubus said, "I like it, you big head ghost." The doctor prepared the tranquilizer for tomorrow, and suddenly he seemed to think of something. "Today is the day. You guys should leave work early, and I will prepare the tranquilizer." In a blink of an eye, Aiden prepared the tranquilizer in the infirmary. Today's moon is particularly round. How can tranquilizers suppress the werewolf under the full moon? This is exactly Aiden's plan. Only if the werewolf makes a mistake can he use an excuse to kill him. At this moment, the succubus was still complaining to his sisters. Suddenly, there was some movement behind him. He turned around and was scared to death. Oh my God, what's going on? This is a prison that only holds witches. There are countless beautiful girls imprisoned inside, including sexy succubi swept in during the crackdown on pornography, orc girls who only eat human brains, and even indescribable creatures. Aiden, the prison warden, has a headache every day. Ellie from Cell 2 applied to buy a comb to comb her hair, which was reasonable and approved. Catherine in Room 6 wants to buy a knife to ward off evil spirits. If you don't approve, tell him not to treat us as idiots. The succubus in Room 13 wants to be acquitted. If you don't approve, tell him that he will be put in solitary confinement if he screams again. Suddenly the doctor rushed in. Warden, I just remembered that yesterday was a full moon. The werewolves need at least 10 injections of tranquilizers. Werewolves under the full moon may harm the succubus. Send someone to check it out. Aiden didn't say anything, but stood up slowly. Then he asked the doctor to look outside, and saw the succubus and the werewolf outside the window being sweetly affectionate. The doctor said that was impossible. Aiden said, I watched him all night and found that he not only didn't hurt anyone, but also cleaned the cell very well. Hearing this, the doctor felt very incredible. As it happened, the werewolf outside the window was staring at the baby in the statue's hands. The doctor seemed to have discovered something. Could he be a bloodthirsty werewolf? It turned out that 100 years ago, humans and werewolves were trapped in the castle. Because of the lack of food, they began to suspect each other, and both sides were afraid of becoming the other's food. At the critical moment, the leader of the human race gave his dead child to the werewolves to fill their stomachs, which shocked the werewolves. After breaking out, these werewolves became blood-killing werewolves. In order to integrate into the human race, they used self-mutilation to restrain the violence brought by the full moon. However, nowadays, humans are crazy about rejecting aliens, and blood-killing werewolves are rarely seen. The doctor also felt something was wrong. If he is a blood wolf, how could he hurt humans? You know, a blood wolf would not fight back even if it was beaten to death by humans. So how could he become a death row inmate? At this time, a prison guard pushed the door open again and said, Oh no, Warden, the werewolf is going crazy in the bathroom. Aiden breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he was not a bloodthirsty werewolf. At this time, the bathroom was already surrounded by onlookers. Aiden was also very confused. Wasn't he and the succubus just fine? The two people who were beaten were extremely angry. They shouted that they wanted to hang the werewolf. Tell me, why did you hit someone? The crowd outside was already very excited, so Aiden had to maintain order. Based on your performance, I have decided to advance your sentence. Do you have anything else to say? He just snorted coldly. I think you just want to kill me. Then what else can I say? Since you all believe that I am a murderer, just shoot me. At this moment, Aiden remembered Rosen's words in his mind, but when he saw the werewolf's desperate face, he thought of the doctor's introduction to the bloodthirsty werewolf, and he finally put down his gun. I, the warden, have always been fair. Bring him to the interrogation room to see me. This is a prison specifically for witches. It holds cold-blooded lowly killers, sexy and cute succubi, and even the noble vampire queen. Without exception, they are all unforgivable sinners. But on this day, the prison sent a blood-drinking werewolf. They are the outliers among werewolves. Their life goal is to integrate into humans. There are even cases where they refuse to fight back even when beaten to death by humans. But this blood-drinking werewolf was sent to prison as a death row prisoner, so the warden Aiden prepared to interrogate him personally. First of all, it was about him beating someone in the bathroom just now. It turned out that the two criminals threatened the succubus first, and he couldn't bear to see his friend get hurt, so he took action. Suddenly, he became emotional. Warden, I didn't kill anyone. I know you are different from others. Since you have objections to the case, let's confront each other. First of all, what did you do before the incident? That day, I just arrested a dealer selling fake liquor. His wife came to the police station to protest, but she died in her home that night. But I didn't kill anyone, let alone shoot. But when I checked your gun, I found that a bullet was missing, and you didn't have an alibi. Aiden was also helpless. There is no evidence to prove your innocence. He became even more emotional. I don't have any evidence, but my character can prove it. I have been a militiaman in the village since I was a child. I help the villagers every day. I even fought against natural disaster-level monsters and saved hundreds of people. You can ask those who were saved by me. But this doesn't prove that you didn't kill anyone. Saving people has nothing to do with killing people. Killing people only takes a moment. You can think about other details. If what you said is true, I will help you. The werewolf's face gradually darkened. I saved so many people, but now I can't save myself. Then he was taken away from the interrogation room. Then the succubus was brought up to prove the werewolf's innocence. He vividly demonstrated how the werewolf had saved him just now. Aiden was very surprised. Why did you faint? I accidentally stepped on the soap and fell down. And the warden, I think he was slandered. We succubi can peek into other people's dreams. His dreams were so hopeless that no one listened to his confession, and he was sentenced to death. Aiden retorted, how do I know you are not lying? I don't decide his guilt. Then are you going to execute an innocent man? These words pierced Aiden's heart deeply. Get out. Someone take him back to the cell. After everyone left, he grabbed his hair dejectedly. In the afternoon, he asked his assistant to look over the case file, and only then did he realize that the entire case was full of doubts, such as why a werewolf would use a gun to kill people. His assistant was puzzled. Are you going to try him yourself? Aiden was silent for a while. It would be more uncomfortable for me to kill an innocent prisoner than to eat a fly. If you are a righteous policeman, would you execute an innocent death row prisoner? Now Aiden is facing this problem. He is about to execute a kind-hearted werewolf. This prisoner has been helping humans since he was a child and has saved hundreds of villagers from the hands of monsters. But now he has been wronged and has become a death row prisoner. As the warden, Aiden looked through the entire file and found that the whole case was full of doubts. In order to find out the truth, Aiden came to the cell and found the succubus. The succubus can peek into other people's dreams. After some friendly communication, the two began to act. The werewolf was sleeping soundly at this time. Under the guidance of the succubus, Aiden successfully entered the werewolf's dream. He seemed helpless in the dream. He didn't understand why humans couldn't fight back even if they wanted to kill them. Is it because they are bloodthirsty werewolves? He was desperate, and he wished someone could save them. At this moment, a pair of warm hands held him. Don't worry, we will try the murderer who hurt you. The person who spoke seemed to be a judge, and the werewolf shed tears of emotion when he heard it. But the next second, the judge suddenly changed the subject. You are too happy too early, because we are going to judge you. Why did you kill an innocent human? You must be seeking revenge on humans because your tribe was killed. Then the hammer of judgment fell. I will sentence you to death. The werewolf couldn't believe his ears for a moment. Why don't you even give me a chance to defend myself? His despair also infected Aiden, and due to his unstable emotions, Aiden returned to reality. It seems that this case is deeper than he thought. The succubus was puzzled. Can't you guarantee a prisoner with your reputation? Even the judge in this case was manipulated. If you want him to turn over, the dead must be able to speak. This sentence also gave him inspiration. The necromancer Lena could make the dead speak. At this time, the voice of the prison guard suddenly came from outside. Welcome Senator Anthony to visit the Rose prison. Aiden was very confused. What was the counselor doing at this time? Athena, the goddess of war, was taken prisoner and imprisoned in the dungeon in a humiliating posture. It turns out that this is a prison specifically for serious criminals. No matter how noble your status is, you are just an ordinary prisoner here. Warden Aiden has recently run into a problem. He is about to execute an innocent wolf girl. Aiden is a fair and just warden. He will not let any guilty person go, but he is also unwilling to kill an innocent person by mistake. But just as he was investigating the suspicious points in the case, Congressman Anthony came to visit him. Aiden was puzzled. Why did you come to visit me in the middle of the night? I advise you not to get yourself into trouble. Didn't I ask Rosen to tell you that as long as you kill the prisoner, I will convince the parliament to keep the prison? But why do you still want to investigate? Let's take a look at the latest newspaper first. The newspaper was reporting on the werewolf incident and also praising the warden Aiden. Anthony's face was gloomy. I've already told you, just execute him. The former hero will personally execute the murderous demon. You will become a hero of the people again, and the prison will be preserved. Aiden finally spoke. But there is no evidence to prove that he killed anyone. Now is not the time for you to seek justice. Only if you execute him will we consider keeping the prison. Aiden remained silent. The eventful night always brought thunderstorms. Aiden thought quietly under the lightning. Suddenly he stood up, as if he had made up his mind. Then he came to a safe, and as the combination turned, a secret door slowly opened. Aiden walked down slowly alone, and then a voice came from the depths. Are you brewing a dangerous plan? Aiden just continued to walk down with the kerosene lamp. Soon he reached the bottom and saw a huge woman who was tied up tightly with iron chains. He said, Aiden, you're here again. At this time, Aiden also spoke. I have decided to help a prisoner get justice, but I don't know where to start, and I don't know the consequences. Suddenly, a huge chessboard appeared at his feet. As long as you win, I will tell you the answer. Because the woman was none other than Athena, the goddess of war. The Roman goddess of war Athena lowered her noble head. Now she was a humble death row prisoner, suppressed in the dungeon in an extremely shameful posture, and the person who imprisoned her was none other than the Warden Aiden. Aiden is a man with a strong sense of justice, but at this moment he is faced with a difficult choice. Senator Anthony wants him to execute an innocent prisoner, otherwise he will directly abolish the Rose prison. Aiden chose to refuse and decided to overturn the werewolf's case. So he came to the dungeon and sought help from Athena, the goddess of war. Athena is willing to help him, but she wants to play a game of chess with him first. If she wins, she will tell Aiden what to do. So, Aiden started playing chess by pushing a chess piece that was bigger than his. Time passed quickly, and the two of them decided the winner, with Aiden being defeated. Athena teased, "It seems that your mind is not here." His mind was full of the werewolf case. There must be a noble manipulating it behind the scenes. Otherwise, the werewolf would not have been sentenced to death so quickly. Now I am at the last step. Either I help them kill people and silence them, or I close the prison. Hearing this, Athena couldn't help laughing. Do you know why this prison was built? Of course it's because of me, the god of war, Athena. You can guess whether they dare to close the prison, and you have to keep an eye on me. If I run away, the prison will really be gone. Athena continued, "How can you, an ordinary person who doesn't even know magic, want to overturn the werewolf case? I have the help of the 3 contracted prisoners. I can continue to disguise myself and let them help me." Athena was even more disdainful. "Then how long do you think you can keep pretending?" This sentence made Aiden silent. "May I remind you that there are more than just these 3 prisoners in the entire prison." This sentence instantly made Aiden realize that there are quite a few people in the entire prison who possess magical powers. Aiden can fully use their power to investigate the case. The 1,000 prisoners in the Rose prison are Aiden's 1,000 means. After getting the answer, Aiden immediately prepared for action. At this time, the rain had stopped outside and the sky cleared up. Aiden also rushed to another cell where the necromancer Lena was imprisoned. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for launching terrorist attacks with corpses. Faced with Aiden's request for help, he was determined to finish reading the book. In order to read quietly, he took out a necklace, which was the undead pendant that could summon the dead. He casually threw such a dangerous thing to Aiden. The moment Aiden held it, a powerful force burst out instantly. Lena said she was very sorry and said she did not control the strength well. Aiden didn't say anything, but his whole body was shaking uncontrollably. Lena felt like she was going to die. For a moment, she thought of the days when she was dominated by Aiden. She was scared. "I'm sorry, I really know I was wrong." The next second, Aiden slowly turned his head and said, "It's okay. This is so cool. Next time I come to see you, I'll bring you some more books." Hearing this, Lena felt as if struck by lightning. Looking at Aiden's back, she was wondering when this guy became so considerate. The Roman goddess of war Athena was reduced to a death row prisoner and was imprisoned in a dungeon in an extremely shameful posture. The person who imprisoned her was the Warden Aiden. In order to overturn the werewolf case, he went to the dungeon to seek help from Athena. At her suggestion, Aiden decided to use the help of the prisoners in the Rose prison. First, he found the necromancer Lena, who could control the spirits of the dead. Eventually, Aiden got the pendant that could control the spirits of the dead. After getting the equipment, he rushed to the cemetery without stopping. He wanted to find the bodies of the victims in the werewolf case. But when Aiden opened the coffin, he found only ashes inside. Aiden took out the pendant of the dead and tried it, but it didn't work for a long time. The noise also attracted the person keeping vigil, who looked impatient and said, "Can't you let me sleep?" But the next second, tears started flowing from his nose, and then he ran out for his life. Aiden was surprised and turned around to be shocked. He was surrounded by the undead. "I'm sorry to disturb you all. Let's go back." Aiden had never thought that this undead pendant would be so useful. Suddenly, there was a noise behind him again. It was the victim's undead being summoned. Aiden was very excited. "Tell me quickly, who killed you? I will help you get revenge." Because of the strong resentment after death, the undead actually understood what Aiden said. Suddenly, he exploded and turned into countless fragments, each of which carried his memory before his death. It turned out that someone wanted to rape him that night, and he fought back desperately, but was eventually shot and killed mercilessly. Then the bloody plot came. Aiden shouted, "Why don't you tell me the name of the murderer?" There was no other way. Aiden could only continue to look for clues from the memory fragments. Although he didn't see the face, he saw the police badge on the murderer's clothes and the bullet used when he shot and killed someone. Because he was short of a bullet, he targeted the werewolf who was also short of bullets. The only one who could get someone else's gun was the weapons manager. Aiden rushed to the Armed Forces Department without stopping, but the administrator was thin and a loser, and it was obvious that he was not the murderer. But that doesn't mean he's not an accomplice. Aiden used the excuse that he wanted him to help fix his pistol, and the guy was naturally willing to serve the warden and asked with a smile what the problem was. It's just that the pistol is always missing a bullet. Hearing this, he was instantly struck by lightning, and then he decisively rejected Aiden. Of course, Aiden knew all this, but Bruce was much smaller than the murderer. He must have known about the case. Don't worry, let the bullets fly for a while. In a blink of an eye, it was already dusk. Bruce was very distressed on his way home from get-off work. His mind was full of what Aiden said. At this time, he noticed that the front was surrounded by a crowd of onlookers, and the gravekeeper was vividly describing the scene he saw last night. The dead tavern owner actually told a man that she wanted revenge. All this was heard by Bruce, who was passing by. When he heard the name of the proprietress, he was instantly scared into noodles. Then he ran home for his life and wrapped himself up like a dumpling when he got home. Aiden saw all of this, and it seemed that he had alerted the enemy. The reason why he could see all of this was because he got the help of the witch Alice. This prison held the Roman goddess of war Athena, and the former god also lowered her noble head. Not long ago, a werewolf sentenced to death for murder was sent to the prison. After investigation, Aiden found that there were many suspicious points in the case. So he used the ability of the necromancer Lena to successfully lock on to Bruce, the suspected accomplice, and monitored him with the help of the witch Alice. Alice is a cool and arrogant lady who was sentenced to life imprisonment for controlling animals to attack the military. She said lazily, "Lord Aiden, I helped you. What benefits are you going to give me?" Aiden's face was cold. "Benefits? Do you think we are making a deal?" Alice broke out in a cold sweat, and she remembered the days when she was dominated by Aiden. "No, I was just joking. This is what I should do." Aiden was very satisfied with her reaction. He breathed a sigh of relief and said, "By the way, I plan to buy you some dessert. What do you think of the cream cake on 7th Street? Just hearing the name made Alice start drooling like crazy. Soon it was late at night, and Aiden was flipping through the files while observing Bruce. But he didn't show any suspicious behavior. Suddenly, Aiden closed the file in his hand and said, "It seems that we must use some special means." Bruce was sleeping soundly at this time, but suddenly there was a noise from the ceiling. Bruce was suddenly awakened, and because of his guilty conscience, tears flowed directly from his nose. Then a strand of hair floated in front of him. Bruce looked up and found that the entire ceiling was covered with long hair. He quickly hid himself in the bed and kept reminding himself that it was just a dream. But the next second, a female ghost appeared in front of him with her mouth wide open. "Bruce, I died so unjustly." He instantly launched himself into the air, not caring whether he was wearing clothes or not, and performed performance art on the street. And all of this was seen by Aiden. Only when a person is threatened with death will he seek help from the person he trusts the most, and that person is very likely the real culprit behind the scene. The female ghost was also a prisoner in the Rose prison. She was very disdainful of Aiden's behavior. "As a warden, you actually let the prisoners do such a thing. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at if you tell others about it? What are you afraid of? Compared to this, I am more reluctant to execute a kind-hearted person. I also hope that you will give up your obsession and rest in peace soon." At the same time, Bruce was still running desperately. He had already determined that the female ghost just now was the dead proprietress. Suddenly, a big hand covered his mouth, and then he was dragged into an alley. "Idiot, why are you yelling? Are you afraid that others don't know about this?" Bruce felt like he had grabbed a life-saving straw, and the police badge on that person was exactly the same as the one worn by the murderer Aiden discovered. The Roman goddess of war Athena was reduced to a death row prisoner and was imprisoned in a dungeon in an extremely shameful posture. She was imprisoned by the warden Aiden. By utilizing the help of the inmates in the Rose prison, he identified the accomplice behind the werewolf case, and with some special means, he successfully forced the real murderer out. But Bruce didn't know that Aiden was monitoring him. As soon as he saw Jarvis, he began to cry about the strange things that had happened recently. Jarvis's face was grim. "Can't you keep your voice down? If this gets discovered by others, we'll all be doomed. You can stay at my house for a few days. I have a magic circle that's specially made for the undead." Just from the house, it's clear that Jarvis is not a simple person. "But I have to remind you that since you've joined me, this road will be filled with blood." All of this was seen by the crows behind them. On the other side, Aiden also learned the name of the real murderer, and he immediately ran to the werewolf to confirm it. The werewolf silently repeated the name Jarvis a few times and finally thought of the reason for his frame-up. Advantage of the werewolf more than once, but was rejected decisively, which led to Jarvis holding a grudge. The werewolf was puzzled. "Are you going to kill me just because of this?" Aiden thought it was normal. These noble children all have a perverted mentality. That is, if they can't get it, they will destroy it. Unknowingly, it was late at night again. Aiden visited a criminal again. Judging from the shadow, this time it seemed that he was not human. At the same time, he held a bunch of envelopes in his hand. I know you are very unhappy that we didn't read your letter, but there is nothing we can do. After all, nothing good will come of reading your words. How about this? If you do me a favor, I will agree to one of your requests. How about that? There are only 2 unknown words in the prisoner's file. The only thing known is that the letters he wrote have the power of a curse. During the day, a carrier pigeon flew across the sky. Its destination was Bruce's new room. It dropped the envelope and left. Bruce felt very confused when he just woke up, but when he opened the envelope, his face suddenly changed. He saw that the envelope was full of mysterious runes, and Bruce studied it for a long time, but couldn't understand it. After a while, he felt dizzy and suddenly heard a noise behind him. He turned around and found a big hole in the window. What he didn't know was that the sky outside the manor was already covered by darkness. The Roman goddess of war Athena was reduced to a death row prisoner and was imprisoned in a dungeon in an extremely shameful posture. The person who imprisoned her was the Warden Aiden. By using the help of the prisoners in the Rose prison, he successfully identified Jarvis, the real culprit behind the werewolf case, and learned the reason why he framed the werewolf. In order to completely overturn the werewolf case, he once again targeted Bruce, the accomplice in the case. Then he used an indescribable creature to send Bruce a cursed letter. When the innocent Bruce finished reading, he immediately felt a splitting headache, and after noticing something unusual, he ran for his life. But when he opened the door, he found that the whole world was full of weirdness, and his whole body couldn't stop shaking. For a moment, Bruce felt that he was abandoned by the whole world. Suddenly, the door was pushed open again, and he turned his head in surprise. "Jarvis, is that you?" But the next second, he collapsed to the ground, because the person who came out was actually the dead boss lady. He was completely desperate. "Is this God's punishment for me?" His eyes suddenly widened. "Jarvis killed you. Why are you bothering me?" This confused the butler. It turned out that the female ghost was just the butler. At the same time, Jarvis behind the door had made up his mind to get rid of Bruce. Just as Bruce was confessing, a bullet suddenly shot at him, and his ear was instantly pierced. But it wasn't that Jarvis missed the target, but a crow interfered with him. The scene was a bit chaotic for a while, and just when Jarvis was about to make up the blow, more crows rushed towards him, which gave Bruce time to escape. He ran out of the manor desperately, but suddenly his feet slipped and he fell heavily to the ground. Bruce opened his eyes again and found himself lying in a grave. He looked up and saw the name of the boss lady written on the tombstone. At this time, there was a noise behind him. When Bruce turned his head, he found that there were densely packed undead behind him. But in fact, there was nothing. Everything he saw was just an illusion. He ran for his life even more frantically, and then a huge tombstone blocked his way, with his name written on it, describing him as a scum who was greedy for money. Bruce was in disbelief. He stood in front of his own tombstone and looked at it for a long time. Then he thought of what Jarvis said to him. "The road to power is paved with blood." Bruce turned his head and looked at the undead following him. At this moment, he seemed to understand. "Were you all killed by Jarvis? Will I end up like you?" The dead did not answer him, but slowly dispersed. Bruce finally returned to reality, and passers-by had surrounded him, but no one knew what he had experienced. Rose Prison, Warden Aiden's office. "Lord Aiden, there is an innocent prisoner in your prison. I am willing to be his witness." The Roman goddess of war Athena was condemned to death, but the Warden Aiden who imprisoned her was an ordinary man. Thanks to his unremitting efforts, the accomplice in the werewolf case finally came forward and confessed his guilt, and he also wanted to identify the real murderer Jarvis. Aiden finally breathed a sigh of relief. Now he only needed the materials to bring down Jarvis. Bruce was taken to prison for protection. On the other hand, Jarvis also knew that the matter had been exposed, and he immediately prepared to run away. But all this was watched by Aiden, who asked the witch Alice to continue to interfere with him while preparing to stop him personally. After arranging the matters of the Rose prison, he rode his horse and chased him all the way. During the process, a little mouse jumped down and ran all the way back to the prison. Under the watchful eyes of the necromancer Lena, it came to the cell of the witch Alice and spit out several bullets from its mouth. It turns out that Alice had already suspected Aiden. You know, how could the omnipotent warden be scared by the undead and keep asking these prisoners for help? Lena was obviously not interested in what she said, while Alice continued to talk to herself. "I don't want to stay in prison for the rest of my life, and Aiden may not be the real Aiden. It seems that someone is going to intercept our righteous warden, so let him verify my guess." At the same time, the werewolf seemed to smell something. "Master Aiden is in danger, let me out." The prison guard was very impatient. What nonsense are you talking about? Someone is following him. I've smelled him. He's very dangerous. The succubus at the side echoed. Werewolves have a very sensitive sense of smell, and they became even more excited. Let me out quickly. I want to save him. This made the prison guard a little overwhelmed. At this time, there was a sound of footsteps. It was Aiden's assistant Flanda. Let him go. He has been found not guilty and will be released soon. I will be responsible if anything goes wrong. Hearing this, the two prison guards slowly opened the cell door. Alice next door was very puzzled. Is the werewolf's nose really that sharp? There is also a small episode. A prisoner was eager to know what happened. The succubus who claimed to be Aiden's official girlfriend said that she knew everything, so the whole prison started a frenzy of gossip. On the other side, Jarvis was running away and was constantly harassed by crows, which gave Aiden time to catch up with him. Jarvis turned his head when he heard the noise, but he didn't expect to be greeted by Aiden's whip of justice. Master Jia, where are you going? I advise you to wait for your arrest warrant at home. At this moment, something strange happened. A sword pierced through the big tree next to him, and a figure flew out from the dense forest. He slashed at Aiden fiercely. In a hurry, Aiden used his horse to block the fatal blow. The werewolf is finally going to overturn the case. With the unremitting efforts of the warden Aiden, the real murderer Jarvis is finally found. But just when Aiden was preparing to arrest him, he chose to run away. Aiden had no choice but to chase him himself. With the help of the witch Alice, Aiden quickly caught up with him. Just as he was about to arrest Jarvis, something strange happened. A figure suddenly appeared and slashed at Aiden. Aiden used his horse to block the fatal blow. I've heard a lot about you, Aiden Garrett. I'm the gold medal bounty hunter White. He introduced himself while asking Jarvis behind him to continue running. I think he was invited by his rich father, but White's goal is not just money. He also wants to kill Aiden with his own hands, because if he succeeds, his worth will definitely skyrocket. Thinking of this, White rushed towards him directly. Although Aiden moved flexibly, he was kicked hard by him, which made Aiden fall badly. White seized this opportunity to send him to see God. On the other side, the werewolf was desperately rushing over here, and finally he arrived at Aiden's critical moment. He jumped down from midair, kicked White hard with all his strength, but was blocked by a protective shield. At the same time, the cross on White's body suddenly cracked, and Aiden took the opportunity to distance himself from him. He was a little confused for a moment. How did this protective shield come out? The situation was critical, and the werewolf just asked him to chase Jarvis, and White was left to him. Aiden was silent for a moment, and finally followed his advice. You must be more careful. The behavior of the two men completely infuriated White. He chopped at the werewolf fiercely, but the werewolf was not so easy to bully. He kicked White's head hard, and the force was so great that White flew backwards several meters. But suddenly a lot of smoke came out. It turned out that the old man, White, had used a dirty trick. He said with a ferocious face, "When I was practicing with the blood-killing werewolf before, one escaped. It must be you." It turns out that in the werewolf's memory, it was White who slaughtered them, but at this time he seemed very calm, and he was using his sense of smell to determine White's location. Finally he found it, and then he rushed towards White without hesitation, and then punched him directly. But he didn't expect that he only hit a piece of clothing, and the real White had already run up the tree. He threw a bottle of potion down suddenly, and the potion shattered in front of the werewolf. Then a terrifying tree demon slowly appeared, and the werewolf's right leg was tightly entangled by branches. All of this was originally prepared to deal with Aiden. In order to completely kill the werewolf, White also prepared a crossbow. Faced with the attack from both sides, the werewolf was covered with wounds in a short while, but this did not mean that he fell down. You have to know that he was a real werewolf. The real murderer Jarvis in the werewolf hidden weapon was executed. It was not Aiden who did it, but Jarvis' biological father. Under the cover of the werewolf, Aiden successfully caught up with Jarvis. When Jarvis saw the lingering Aiden, he was furious, but he had no choice but to keep running. He was running while looking back. Aiden wasn't paying attention and he bumped into a passing vehicle, which made him so excited that his nose was bleeding. The wasted time gave Aiden time to catch up with him. Master Jarvis, you are really panicking. Are you going to come back with me now, or will I tie you up and take you back? At this time, there were countless onlookers around. Jarvis' nose was still bleeding. He quietly touched his pistol, but he didn't expect Aiden to point the gun at him first. Master, you have so many little tricks. Unexpectedly, Jarvis was not afraid at all. He even laughed. So, Lord Aiden wanted to kill me with the air. The disappeared bullet was taken away by the witch Alice in episode 12. Jarvis took out his gun with a smug look on his face. It seems that Lord Aiden wants to kill me with air. Suddenly Aiden let go and threw away the pistol, then used the only flash spell he knew on Jarvis. Then he drew his sword and knocked Jarvis' pistol away with the scabbard, and the blade was already on his neck. Then Jarvis cried, "I just killed a pariah. Why did you do this?" Not far away, a carriage was quietly observing the movements of the two people. At this time, some people also recognized the famous Aiden. With nowhere else to go, Jarvis chose to throw a tantrum. "Help! Someone is killing someone. Everyone, please judge. He wants to kill me and won't let me run." But what he got in return was the blade getting closer to his neck. If you say another word of nonsense, it will be more than just bleeding. Jarvis completely lost his mind. He slowly reached for the dagger at his sleeve. "You forced me to do this," Aiden gargled. But the next second, he was shot in the head. Aiden was completely stunned. The one who shot him was a man with noble temperament. The scene was a bit confusing for a while, and Aiden recognized him as Anthony, who had come to see him in episode 6. The werewolf once said that Jarvis was the illegitimate son of a congressman. At this time, Anthony slowly spoke. "Everyone should know that the recent Veronica shooting case, after investigation, was actually done by the rebellious son Jarvis. As a congressman, I will definitely not let him go unpunished." Then he bowed to Aiden and said, "Lord Aiden, I have brought my rebellious son to justice. Please give me some time to be alone with him." He couldn't help but burst into tears. Now the whole public opinion was leaning towards him. At this time, there was a sudden turbulence in the distance. Aiden thought to himself that it was the direction of the werewolf in white. He ran over there without hesitation, while Anthony, who was still immersed in the grief of losing his son, thought to himself, "Wait," Aiden gargled, "we are not done with this." This is what the werewolf looks like after transformation. So charming that Aiden can't bear to look at it. It turned out that under White's coercion, the werewolves were forced into a violent state, which directly led to great turmoil in the area within a radius of 10 miles. Even Aiden felt that the battle was too brutal. At this moment, his trouser legs were suddenly grabbed by someone, and it was White who was seriously injured. He shamelessly begged Aiden to save him. "Fair Warden, even if I have committed a crime, please punish me according to the law." Aiden was speechless. "Your employer taught you all this, didn't he?" White was very surprised, because Aiden guessed correctly that these words were taught to him by Anthony. Because once White was put in prison, Anthony would be able to rescue him. Of course, White would definitely not admit these. Aiden showed a sarcastic look on his face, and White thought that his lies had fooled him. But the next second, Aiden drew his knife and said, "It's a pity that the heroic Aiden you mentioned is dead. I am a person who has a clear distinction between love and hate." Before White could react, Aiden sent him to see God. Then he looked for the werewolf everywhere. Finally, Aiden found him in a corner, but the werewolf was obviously not in a good state. He was naked from the waist up, and when he heard someone approaching him, he panicked. Aiden quickly covered his eyes. The werewolf was so shy that he just wanted to pull out his coat from the bushes. But the result was not what he wanted. In the panic, his coat was torn, which made it difficult for the werewolf to deal with him. In the end, Aiden contributed his coat. The scene came to the streets of Silver City, where the werewolf and Aiden were walking side by side. He was very curious about what happened to the werewolf just now. The werewolf explained to Aiden very embarrassedly that he had just turned into a werewolf, but not completely. It turns out that he had a defect since childhood, which was that he could not completely transform into a werewolf, so he could not avoid being laughed at by his own people. But every time the villagers would stand up for him, and the whole village had a harmonious relationship with the werewolf race. Thinking of this, he fell into deep memories. Aiden felt very sympathetic towards his situation. "I remember you said you saved a village before, so you can consider going back after you are released from prison." Hearing this, the werewolf looked very depressed. "I dare not go back, because I haven't made a name for myself yet, and it would be too embarrassing to go back like this." At this moment, there was a sudden noise in front of the two. A policeman was driving away a group of ordinary people. The werewolf looked a little strange. These people looked so familiar. Most heartwarming episode of Rose Prison. When the werewolf is about to be released from prison after his case is overturned, he welcomes the villagers who vouched for him. It turned out that when Aiden and the werewolf returned to the prison, they accidentally ran into a policeman driving away a group of ordinary people. The werewolf seemed to know them. He stood there for a long time, and the scene of leaving the village kept appearing in his mind. He once said that he must make a name for himself in Silver City. Thinking of this, the werewolf waved at them excitedly. The werewolf finally returned to the embrace of his family. He blushed and asked everyone why they were here. Everyone responded to him in a flurry, saying that after the villagers knew that he was in trouble, they were worried about him and walked for half a month to see him. The werewolf looked down subconsciously and found that their shoes were already worn out. The werewolf could no longer hold back and cried bitterly, covering his face. The villagers were still worried about him going to prison. At this time, Aiden came over and said, "Don't worry, everyone. Veronica has been confirmed to be innocent and will be released from prison soon. I will guarantee it." The villagers were relieved, but this made a passerby with a pointed face and monkey cheeks very dissatisfied. "What are you guys doing together, you stinky beggars? Don't you know that this is the city center?" The villagers did not get angry about this, but chose to say goodbye to the werewolf. At this moment, the werewolf wanted to say something, but he couldn't open his mouth. He wanted to treat these people who loved him to a meal, but he didn't have the money, so he could only let go helplessly. In the end, Aiden said what he wanted to say. "You came all the way here, why don't you stay in Silver City for a few days before leaving? Veronica, feel your coat. Isn't there the bonus you just received today?" The werewolf followed his instructions and took out a handful of gold coins. The villagers were stunned because they had never seen gold coins in their lives. Aiden said to the werewolf, "Take this money and treat the villagers to a meal in the city center." At this moment, there was a sound of footsteps. It was Aiden's assistant who came with his men. Seeing that Aiden was fine, he breathed a sigh of relief. "You came just in time. You can go have dinner with Veronica's friends." He looked at the man who had just barked. After all, there are always some people who think they are right. Flanders understood, and then several people decisively loaded their rifles. The man who had been so arrogant just now immediately fled. Then Aiden gave the werewolf a few more instructions, and the werewolf was a little speechless for a while. Led by the prison guards, the villagers excitedly went to the restaurant. Before leaving, the werewolf looked back at Aiden, and then he looked at the village in the distance with a little loneliness. He slowly pulled up his collar, and then took a few deep breaths of the coat that smelled of Aiden. Athena, the Roman goddess of war, actually likes to play flying chess with others, and she plays against them as a death row prisoner. Her opponent is none other than the Warden Aiden. After going through 81 difficulties, the werewolf finally saw the dawn of peace. Fortunately, the matter went unexpectedly smoothly in court. Anthony not only did not hire any lawyer to defend him, but even remained silent throughout the whole process. So the result was naturally that the werewolf was successfully vindicated. However, Anthony tried his best to protect his son in the beginning, but was so decisive when shooting later. The huge contrast between the two always left Aiden puzzled. Was he afraid that the incident would expose his identity as a counselor, or was he afraid that something darker would be exposed? After the incident was over, the werewolf chose to say goodbye to everyone. He wanted to stay away from this complicated place with the villagers. Aiden also returned to the prison and reviewed the matter with Athena. According to his request, Aiden bought some things for the prisoners, because in Athena's view, the matter was far from over. Anthony chose to endure, but he did not choose to admit defeat, so she asked Aiden to buy something for the prisoner, which was also a way for him to protect himself. At this time, the dice on the table were spinning nonstop, and the peace of the entire Silver City would no longer exist. At this time in the prison cafeteria, Alice got up and ate breakfast, which was rare. The prisoners behind her laughed at her and said she was Aiden's lackey, which made Alice very angry. But the next second he changed his expression. "I have been feeling stomach discomfort recently. Do you have any other food?" This green tea look instantly aroused the dissatisfaction of the prisoners behind him. But he didn't expect that the lady serving food actually said yes, and actually brought him a whole strawberry cake. In an instant, the whole prison went crazy, and Alice took the cake and left with satisfaction. At the same time, Lena also came to the library to borrow books, and this time she successfully borrowed the best-selling new book outside. When she saw the title of the book, she instantly entered a wonderful world. At this time, the indescribable creatures also welcomed a new guest, a cute wood elf. He was a little translator sent by Aiden. He could understand the emotions of all things. To the indescribable creatures, he was simply the best partner. After a few words, the wood elf was forced to have a sweet kiss with him. On the other side, in the prison bathroom, the succubus was taking a beautiful bath, and suddenly 2 uninvited guests came. They usually made money by bullying the succubus. At this time, 2 figures appeared behind them. One of them was a tiger man, and the other was a little dragon man. These were the thugs hired by the succubus. It turned out that when the succubus was with Aiden before, he asked Aiden to let him punish the 2 people who robbed him. In the end, Aiden only left him 4 words. "Be careful." After waiting for so long, he finally got his chance. Beat him hard, and if you can't kill him, beat him to death. Now it was the 2 men's turn to be afraid, and soon screams and the succubus's triumphant laughter were heard from the prison. At this time in Anthony's study, he asked the butler to find After. After was a madman who liked to experiment on human bodies, and his beloved daughter was also imprisoned in the Rose prison. Anthony has made up his mind to make Aiden pay the price. He is the cutest prisoner in the Rose prison. Because he is so cute, even the Warden Aiden can't do anything to him. Jalala originally belonged to the Wood Elf clan. Because she slept late at work, she caused huge losses to the noble's plantation, so she was sent to the Rose prison. Since the Wood Elves are naturally able to read other people's emotions, Aiden sent him to accompany the unspeakable creatures. Although sometimes he was looked down upon by other prisoners, generally speaking, he had an easy time in prison. One day, Aiden suddenly came to him and wanted Jalala to help look after a prisoner with a speech impediment. To him, this was just a trivial matter, but when he saw the prisoner, Jalala realized that it was not that simple. The prisoner had no expression on his face, and in his heart he could only think of one word: cry. Jalala's face turned ugly, and he said to Aiden, rather than calling him a human being, it's better to call him a piece of meat that can digest. In fact, Aiden knew this would happen, and he took out his key and pushed the door open and walked in. Jalala then discovered that his hand was injured, and Aiden told him that it was just a scratch and nothing serious. Then he walked into the cell and said, Aiden, let's start today's morning class. Today we are going to talk about Cinderella. At this time, on a street in Silver City, an old man was selling his products everywhere. Suddenly, he was blocked by a figure who was Anthony's butler. Then the two of them came to a hidden room, and the housekeeper was very straightforward. Do you want to save your daughter? The old woman laughed. So what? Do you want me to break out of prison? That's not what I meant. As long as you surrender yourself and go to prison, you will have a chance to rescue your daughter. Upon hearing this, the old woman's face instantly turned cold. You are making fun of me, and reached for the basket containing the magic potion. Just as she was about to take action, Anthony came out and said, Since we dare to let you go, we must have a complete plan. The old woman also recognized him. After all, Anthony had just finished a lawsuit with Aiden, and Aiden was their common enemy. This contains all the information about the Rose prison. I can weaken the prison's forbidden magic circle to the greatest extent and also reduce the number of guards. When you become strong and attack from within, I will also let the insiders in the prison help you, so that you can easily rescue your daughter, and I will let Aiden die. His plan was perfect, so perfect that the old woman had no reason to refuse. Later, took out a bottle of magic potion and drank it. Then his whole body trembled uncontrollably, and the next second he turned into a tall woman, then entered the Rose prison on the charge of smuggling. My daughter is waiting for her mother. At this time, Aiden, who was reading in prison, seemed to sense something, and then he looked out the window quietly. Avinci was reduced to a death row prisoner. Like the Roman goddess of war Athena, he was also a member of the Rose prison.